Adishi tells a story of when she was in primary school as a 9-year-old girl. Adishi had wanted to be the class monitor, and to do so she had to score the highest on a test. Even though she got the highest score on the test and had the motivation and drive to become the class monitor, the position was given to a boy in the class, despite him having a lower score and less ambition to hold the position. The teacher assumed it was obvious that girls could not become the class monitor because it was only considered to be a boy's position. As she got older, Adishi encountered a man who wanted to give her unsolicited advice about the novel she wrote. The novel she wrote was about a man who would beat his wife. The man told her that she should never call herself a feminist because feminists are women who are unhappy because they cannot find husbands. Later on, Adishi encountered a Nigerian woman who told her that feminism wasn't African. Adishi noticed that the word feminism seemed to be misunderstood by people and carried negative baggage with it. These experiences helped to shape the way that she views gender equality now, because Adishi understands the gender expectation that each gender carries. She understands how stifling it is that boys and girls are raised to treat each other and themselves because of their gender. Adishi views herself as a feminist because she wants to break down the walls and change how males and females view and treat each other. Adishi is angry at how much gender bias is emphasized and how prevalent it still is in the world today. She explains how, especially in Nigeria, that there are gender expectations that both males and females are expected to follow. And for boys, there is an expectation that boys must be afraid of fear and be afraid of weakness and vulnerability. Boys aren't able to express themselves and their emotions as much as girls can, because if they do, they deviate from the standard of being a hard man. Boys have to prove their masculinity through money and power. Adishi claims that the functions of gender today is a grave injustice. Although women are capable of being just as intelligent, creative, and innovative as men, women may still not be qualified for getting better pay at a job because she is a woman. Although we live in a society that is rapidly changing in technology, the ideals of gender still have not changed along with it. In order to change the situation, Adishi suggests that we raise our children differently. Adishi suggests that we teach our children to hold different values and attitudes. Instead of raising our children to focus solely on gender, we raise them to focus on the ability to be creative and innovative, to teach boys and girls crucial life skills such as cooking and caring for a child, and to teach boys and girls that they should never think that they are limited in reaching their goals because of their gender. Adishi brings up a good point in which the more hard man the man feels, the weaker his ego is. Women are expected to shrink themselves and not be a threat to men by limiting their success. Adishi tells a story of a woman she knew that had to sell her house in order to avoid intimidating a man who might marry her in the future. If the woman is too successful, then she is a threat to a man's ego. Women in Nigeria would usually have to drop their dreams, aspirations, and careers in order to avoid becoming a threat to a man's ego. A woman's dating life, married life, and business life are all affected negatively by these gender perceptions. Adishi tells a story of a young woman she knew that would have to wear a wedding ring to conferences in order to be taken seriously. Wearing a ring meant that the woman was associated to a man, and if she was associated to a man, then she would be taken more seriously. Another story that she tells is of a young woman who was so much under pressure by her friends and family to get married that she made rash decisions that ended up to be terrible choices. In marriage, there is a double standard that exists. If women aren't married by a certain age, it is seen as a failure to comply to their expectations as a woman, while if a man is not married, it is not seen as much of a big deal. Adishi describes the language of marriage about being the language of ownership rather than the language of partnership. Adishi explains how when she was teaching a writing class in graduate school, she wasn't worried about the material she would teach, but rather whether she would be taken seriously based on the clothes she would wear. Adishi explains how if she were to wear feminine clothes, such as a skirt and lip gloss, that the class would not take her seriously even if she was a well-prepared, educated professor. She wore a manly suit in order to have to prove her worth as an educator. Men do not have to worry about looking too masculine to a business meeting, while women have to worry about looking too feminine. If a woman appears too feminine, then she may be taken advantage of and not be taken seriously. Gender matters because it shapes the experiences of men and women differently. Men and women both see the world differently because of how they are treated in society due to their gender. Men and women both have different expectations weighed down on them that influence the decisions they make and how they view themselves and other people. Adichie was able to tap into the perspective of expectations that both females and males face in not only Nigerian society, but Western society as well. Adichie explains how the struggles that men face along with women and how we should all take one step closer for us to change our culture in order to live in a society where gender does not impact us negatively anymore. I view myself as a feminist because I have noticed how our culture has turned a blind eye to how men and women struggle due to their gender. We are all humans that have dreams, aspirations, and ideas that could be used to break down the barrier that diminishes the expectations that men and women have to face in their everyday lives. Maybe it won't happen today, but possibly if we were to pass on these ideas to our children, that men and women would finally be able to be themselves without the baggage that their gender weighs down on them.